This should have been a caution. Hey guys, Ryan here, and I just got done watching the highpoint.com 400 at PoconoRaceway, and oh boy, we got a lot to talk about. So, yeah, let's just jump right into it. Talk about the thing from the intro, and get right to the finish of this race. There should have been overtime to this race, and that's not me being over dramatic or asking like, oh yeah, everything's got to have the most exciting finish possible at all. There should have been a caution for a spin like this one. A spin like this, where you have a car sliding down the track in front of cars, should be an immediate yellow. But NASCAR, in their infinite wisdom, decided that, nah, this is the one time we're not going to throw that yellow. So they decided to wait, let the cars take the white flag, race around until they got back around and the car was still stuck in turn 2, and then threw the yellow to end the race, handing the win to Denny Hamlin. I mean, there is just... NASCAR has made so many decisions over the last forever to try and make races more entertaining and almost to seemingly force overtime. So, if you're forcing overtime in so many situations that probably didn't need it, phantom rain caution, non-rain cautions that lead to big wrecks, stuff like that, to try and make entertaining stuff happen, why not give us an overtime finish here at this track? Seriously. Okay, so I think I'm got it just about under control. So, I mean, I will say one thing. I do like the effort to try and help races finish under green. And if that spin had happened on the white flag lap, I would have absolutely commended NASCAR for holding off on this type of yellow, potentially. Again, assuming that ultimately the car didn't get hit by somebody else, and then they would have been coming through at non-race pace when they came to go past him. But the fact that they were going to be still on the white flag racing for the win, coming up to a stationary car. Now, again, they did eventually throw the caution, and it was the right call. They just should have thrown it much sooner, because there is no reason that they should have waited just to try and end the race early. I mean, it's not a decision they've really ever made before, and it really, I feel like, just kind of, it actually gave me something to be more upset about than the next thing we're going to talk about, which is Denny Hamlin. Which is, I apologize if I'm yelling in this video, but I am still, I mean, the checkered flag for that race was an hour ago, I think, at this point, because I was watching a post-race show on Peacock, but I'm still upset. I mean, and I have no dog in this fight. Kyle Busch, McDowell, and Stenhouse are my three guys. I don't have a dog in this fight with Denny Hamlin or Kyle Larson. But the fact that Denny Hamlin did the exact same thing to Kyle Larson that he did as payback to Ross Chastain at the same track last year, first off, devalues the effort of that as payback, quote unquote. But also, it really puts into question, like, okay, is this just how Denny Hamlin races? Because he has complained so much over the last 365 days, and even longer than that at this point, about the way he gets raced. And now he is racing people the way that he raced as payback against drivers who he has not had a crash with. I don't think he's ever crashed with Larson in a race going back almost 10 years at this point. I mean, that's a 10-year clean track record with a guy who is off the track good friends with Denny. And he still crashed him. I mean, yeah, sure, you could say that, and this is what Denny said on the start-finish line, is that, well, he could have lifted. It's like, yeah, but you also could have given more room. You didn't have to squeeze him so tight that his only options were to check way up and maybe not smash the fence, or stay in the throttle and smash the fence. I mean, because looking at this incident, he runs him so close to that fence, there really isn't a I don't know if backing out would have been enough. I don't know if backing out the throttle would have been enough to save Larson from hitting the wall. Oh, I mean, come on. Seriously. Denny, do better. Seriously, like, if you're gonna be a proponent for clean racing and saying that, oh yeah, the aspect of racing needs to be better, then you need to be better about it. You need to hold yourself to that higher standard if you are going to insist that the higher standard should be the norm. Okay, there we go. I think that's everything about the finish of this race, and yeah. So yeah, Denny Hamlin, I think he was absolutely in the wrong. The worry is that, well, and then I guess not quite everything about the finish of the race, because we do have one other thing about this. Kyle Larson, if you're gonna be upset about it, don't pay him back on the racetrack with car contact, because you are just enabling NASCAR to potentially penalize you. He did his roughing up on the green flag run and while attempting to hold his position. You going up to him under the caution flag, almost a full lap after the caution flag had been thrown, and going up and brushing his car is just enabling NASCAR to potentially go and penalize you. And I personally, for one, hope that NASCAR does not penalize Kyle Larson, because I don't want to have the storyline be that Denny Hamlin goes and does that to a competitor, and then Denny Hamlin also doesn't get penalized, but the guy he roughed up does get penalized. So I hope that NASCAR does not take action against Larson for this, but I could also very much see why they would take action against Larson for this, because, again, you can't be hitting people under a yellow flag. So, alright, so I think that's now pretty much everything from the drama part of this race in terms of the actual finish of the event itself. Now, there was a lot more to this race than just the finish. Although it was a very slow and a very sloppy race. I would say sloppy more than slow to an extent. So, in particular, to start stage 2, I think there were like 3 or 4 restart cautions in a row where guys would crash on the restarts going into turn 1. Almost looked like an online NASCAR Heat 5 race. I mean, literally, guys just going into turn 1 and having no idea how to control their cars and losing control into the turn and wiping out themselves and sometimes other cars. I think it started off with the first one was Suarez and Logano down the front straightaway. They didn't even get to the first turn. Larson ended up being one of them, spinning from the front of the pack. Austin Dillon spun twice. There was a lot of just spins and crashes and stuff like that all throughout this field. So, yeah, I mean, again, just super sloppy, especially, again, at that section where you started, where at the start of stage number 2, which really just kind of dragged the early portion of this race. And then you have the strategy element, which has been removed from tracks like the road courses like Sonoma, Watkins Glen, and whatnot, where you pit before the end of the stage. But I actually like this about tracks like here and Indianapolis on the oval, is that if you can stay close enough to the leader, you can pit before the end of the stage and before they throw the caution to do the stage kind of strategy, but it's not something that's open to literally everybody, which makes it more impactful that, okay, you have to pick and choose what you have to make sure that you're staying somewhat competitive enough to stay close. And ultimately, a lot of drivers were able to make something happen there. AJ Allmendinger and Michael McDowell were both able to get stage points in stage number 1. AJ Allmendinger almost got stage points in stage 2 as well from this method, which allowed them to close in on the points gap, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, so those two, they have been fighting to try and Allmendinger's been fighting to try and claw back points to get in, and McDowell has been barely hanging on to that 16th and final spot in the playoffs. And I'm a big fan of both these drivers, and I would love to see them both make the playoffs. I think, though, ultimately there's going to be room for only one of the two, and that's best case scenario. I could see a world where neither one ends up neither one ends up in the playoffs if we get a surprise winner, say an Elliott or a Bowman down the stretch, or a completely random winner at, say, Daytona. But yeah, so drivers like them were able to flip the script and make some good strategy calls, and it ultimately led to a pretty entertaining battle as they tried to kind of work their way towards 40 laps to go, or lap 120 in this race. And then NBC goes to a commercial break just before lap 120 and misses the first people going to green flag pit stops. It's like, how do you hype up a single lap for 2.5, 3 hours and then cut the commercial break as you're getting to that lap? I mean, seriously. Sorry. I said I was going to try not to yell too much more, but yeah, that was the other thing that really bugged me about this race, was that the timing of when they went to that commercial break was just awful. I mean, I know sometimes you can't really, you got to work around the commercials that the TV network wants, but I mean, you couldn't have pushed that. You couldn't have moved it up 5 laps or back 5 laps. I mean, you knew if you move it up 5 laps, there's no way it's gonna interfere with the pit stops. If you push it back 5 laps, yeah, then you're potentially just playing the waiting game of, okay, we're gonna go to commercial break, but we want to make sure we see the green flag stops first. Just move it up 5 laps. Do it at 115 or 110. And then you have no risk of missing the green flag window because they can't fuel save from 110 to the end of the race. But I digress. I'm going to just quickly put up over here the top finishers in this race. And yeah, for the most part, though, I think it's pretty obvious one very notable trend about there was a lot of Toyota power at the front. So yeah, the Toyotas absolutely were the dominant cars by the end of the race. Now, Hendrick had a pretty strong foothold for a decent portion of it before Alex Bowman wrecked near the end of the race. Obviously, you had the Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson drama, and I don't know what happened to Byron, because Byron was in the mix until late. So, I don't know what happened to those, to Byron, but the other two, we know that, obviously, the Kyle Larson got forced into the fence by Denny Hamlin, and Alex Bowman had an issue where he spun and crashed on one of the restarts late in the race. So ultimately that derailed what would have been a great day for Hendrick and led to instead a great day for Joe Gibbs Racing. And I will also give a shout out to 2311 Racing, because Tyler Reddick finishing second there, he definitely deserves a shout out. Probably if this race had the ability to run that last half a lap green, I think Tyler Reddick probably has a good shot to win it. If they'd gone to overtime and called the caution when it should have been called, I think you definitely see a Tyler Reddick win here today. But ultimately, Denny Hamlin comes home with the win. Tyler Reddick comes home second. Monday Martin, unfortunately this race didn't get rain delayed for Martin, so it ends up being a Sunday race, and Monday Martin doesn't get to win. So, Martin Truex Jr. ends up coming home third. Fourth place, Kevin Harvick in his final race here at Pocono, a track that took him a long time to win. I think his first win at Pocono came in 2020, despite racing in this series and having 2 Pocono races. Literally, for 20 years, he couldn't find a way to win at Pocono race. Finally, he found a way to win, and it felt like he won a lot of Pocono races, or at the very least, he was competitive for a long time at Pocono before in the races leading up to his eventual win. Ultimately, he comes up short here today, still looking for that first win of his retirement tour. I'm looking at, now Richmond I wouldn't rule him out of, but I would say definitely I'm looking at Michigan as a very likely chance that he could send off his farewell season with a win at Michigan at the very least. Obviously that doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's his last win, but I could see that being probably his best shot at a win coming down the stretch. And then you had Ty Gibbs getting his first top 5 of his young career. So massive congratulations to Ty Gibbs there, getting a top 5. Just kind of stuck in it all day, and came home with a very good finish and a good points day for a young driver who really needs some good points days to try and work on the points positioning. Then you have Christopher Bell finishing 6th place. Another Joe Gibbs Racing driver finishing inside the top 6. So just another piece to that team having a very good day. All right. Then the next 2 drivers on that list, in 7th and 8th spot, you had Ricky Stenhouse Jr., the Daytona 500 winner, continuing his amazing season where he'd still be in contention to point his way to the playoffs, even if he didn't win the Daytona 500. Obviously, the Daytona 500 locks him into the playoffs, so he doesn't actually have to worry about the points too much. But he may earn some bonus playoff points just for if he can get a 10th place finish in the regular season standings. I don't know where he is in terms of that battle, but yeah, if he could get 10th in the regular season standings, there's an extra bonus 1 playoff point for him for getting that. So, could help him with advancing through the rounds. Then we have Harrison Burton, a driver who, and this is something I said on my live stream earlier today, I feel like he's been on the hot seat going forward with a lot of the going forward towards this upcoming season, that his seat is going to be getting hot with potentially a lot of drivers trying to get that ride. And I think a top 10 finish here should hopefully cool that seat off a little bit, especially with the lack of specific Ford prospects. Now, if Ford really does want to be done with him, I wouldn't be overly surprised, and I would just say that if you're going to move him, don't move him for a Ford prospect unless you can get Zane Smith. If you can get Zane Smith or Todd Gilliland, I would say those would be the only Ford drivers that I would say I would take over him that aren't in Cup right now, because Cole Custer, he's not going to get bumped, or he's not going to go to Penske Ford ride. And Riley Herbst's not ready. Haley Deegan definitely not ready. None of the other Thor Sport truck guys, they're not ready either. So, again, unless it's Zane Smith or Todd Gilliland, I don't think that 21 car should change hands. I think Harrison Burton should have it for at least 1 or 2 more years. Maybe even try and see if you can get Haley Deegan to potentially go to the 21 in a few years once she's had some Xfinity seat time. Although she can't seem to find an Xfinity Series ride. So, yeah. But again, I think Harrison Burton should be staying in that ride, and this top 10 hopefully helps with that. Then you have Eric Jones finally ending, or at least putting a little bit of a rest to the Legacy Motor Club misery that they have been in all season long. I mean, the 43 and the 42 cars, I mean, they have been in just such a miserable state all season long between points penalties and just poor performances, and then Jimmy struggling to finish a lap of a race outside the Daytona 500. I mean, he literally has struggled to finish even 1 lap outside the 500 this year. So, I mean, the entire Legacy Motor Club has been, again, in a complete mess so far this year. So nice to see a driver there getting a top 10 to hopefully help with that. And then rounding out the top 10, just want to give a quick shout out to Chase Elliott. He ran very well in this race. Unfortunately, I still think it's probably going to be must-win territory for Chase Elliott to ultimately end up winning this race. So, or to end up winning to get himself into the championship, to get to the playoffs. Because I think the avenue on points, if it isn't officially over, I think it's pretty close to over after today. So, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm going to go and talk about points here for a little bit, but we'll do a more in-depth video later this week talking about the points battle. So, okay, so that took a whole lot longer than I thought to find the playoff standings, but we have them. So, I've put the playoff standings over here now, and right now we're just looking at 15th on back because 14th, 12th, 13th, and 14th are all plus 100 or more above the cut line. So for all intents and purposes, until we get a surprise winner, they are very safe in terms of making it to the playoffs. But these are the two spots I think that are realistically up for grabs, especially if we see a bad race from one of these two drivers. So you have Bubba Wallace plus 26 on the cut line. Then you have Michael McDowell, who is now plus 17 points on the cut line with 2 road courses still to come, which are his specialty. Then, right behind him, minus 17, it's AJ Allmendinger, which that's going to be the hard part for Michael McDowell, is going to be the fact that AJ Allmendinger, he is very good at road courses too, so the same races that are good for McDowell are great opportunities for AJ Allmendinger to try and claw back some points or even grab a win. He's won at both the road courses coming up in the Cup Series, so certainly don't sleep on AJ Allmendinger. Then you've got Suarez, who after his wreck early today ends up finishing 23rd place, or not 23rd place. He ends up finishing 23 points behind the cut line battle. Ty Gibbs 28 points behind. Just a couple disastrous races ended up derailing what was a potential playoff berth for the young rookie, for Ty Gibbs. Now it's looking more and more likely like he might need a win at, say, Richmond next week to try and vault himself into the playoffs. Then we have the two drivers who are probably in the most trouble here. Alex Bowman, minus 45 points, and Chase Elliott still minus 56 points. So, yeah. Chase Elliott, I think, again, the fact that he only clawed back about 5-6 points in this race, he needs to be doing more than that if he wants to have a spot in the playoffs. Same thing with Alex Bowman. He is too far back, especially for having no top fives since his injury. Now, granted, again, we know he was injured and he missed some races. Same reason why Chase Elliott's so far back. And the fact they've climbed back this far is impressive, but they are not doing enough right now to realistically make the playoffs at this point without winning a race. So I would say that both drivers need to be looking forward to potential what they can win. I think Bowman, we could see Bowman upset at Michigan. Richmond as well, we could see him win. It'll be tough, but I think you could see him win one of those two races. Otherwise, it'll be pretty much hoping for some luck at Daytona, because Bowman is not the best road course racer in the books. Now, Chase Elliott is an exceptional road course racer, so both Indy Road Course and certainly Watkins Glen could very well be the place to pick up a win. So I think Chase Elliott probably is the safer of the two in terms of making it to the playoffs, although both should be in must-win mode, and I would be in pretty close to full panic mode if I'm working for either one of those two teams. I know Jeff Gordon actually said that it wasn't panic time. It is definitely panic time at this point for both of those Hendrick Motorsports drivers. It is must win for both of them, I would say. But yeah, again, I think the interesting thing looking at the battle, though, it will be, does Bubba avoid a catastrophic race at, say, Indy Road Course or Watkins Glen, which are two races that could go very bad for him? And then also the interesting battle of the fact that we have two road course ringers trying to point their way in with two road course races remaining. It very well could come down to who can outpoint who at the road courses, which, to think that AJ Allmendinger might not be the favorite in that battle is kind of hilarious. But, yeah, between those two, I don't know who I would necessarily pick as the favorite to outpoint who at the road courses. I would probably say, and mind you, I'm a big fan of both drivers, I would probably say Allmendinger is the slight favorite here to get the to outpoint on the road courses. I just think that McDowell also has the better car at Daytona if he does need that few extra points to get himself into the playoffs. So it's going to be an interesting battle. And again, we'll talk more about the playoff standings later on in the week. I'll have a whole video dedicated to it. But for right now, though, I would say that it's an interesting mix. Just kind of looking at what's coming up. And the most important thing is that Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman are both in must-win territory and should be in full panic mode. But yeah, that's pretty much all, though, from Pocono. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you guys are new so you guys don't miss any future videos or live streams. I've been live streaming every NASCAR Cup Series race, doing some live commentary for you guys, as well as instant reactions to everything that happens. But until next time, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video, live stream, or whatever you guys decide to do with the rest of your day. Have a great day, everybody, and goodbye!